Yeah, biggest surprise, and tomorrow's going to be our biggest disappointments. One NFC, one AFC. So for the NFC, my biggest surprise, this is the year, and I've been critical of this team even around the draft, where I thought they were going to do something stupid in the draft, and they did something really smart, and that is the Atlanta Falcons. The Falcons have been in this weird space of they're not dysfunctional, but they were just a very unserious franchise. They made a bunch of moves that felt unserious, not realistic, even to the point of last year where it all culminated where you signed Kirk Cousins to this big contract coming off of an injury and then use your top 10 pick on a quarterback, Michael Penix. And I like Michael Penix, but out of all the teams he could have gone to, no one had him going to Atlanta. And it was this weird scene in the draft room where Arthur Blank and the GM were like, what are we doing? And they've just been a very unserious franchise for years. This year, they did some moving around, traded away some picks, and they went and said, hey, look, sometimes it's just this simple. We can't get to the quarterback. We are on a almost decade-long streak of being inept at getting to the quarterback. Let's go get two pass rushers. Let's go get Javon Walker, who in a lot of people's eyes was the best pass rusher available. And then let's move back into the first round and get Pierce out of Tennessee, who there is some issues here, obviously, but talent-wise, maybe potentially walked away with the two best pass rushers in the draft. Just went really simple. We can't get to the quarterback. We have some decent pieces on defense. We got a corner. We had Justin Simmons. We'll see if they bring back. They had the other safety. They just got Bates from Cincinnati a few years ago. Like, we have pieces on defense. We just have such a horrible pass rush. Quarterbacks have forever against us. You're going to see with just the addition of these two guys, if that pass rush is just middle of the pack, this defense is going to be tremendously better. Tremendously. Because it wasn't like, again, sometimes it's just simple. It wasn't necessarily a scheme thing. It wasn't necessarily a talent thing. It was just, we can't get to the quarterback at a horrifically low rate. I think it's 5 of the last 6 years or 5 of the last 7 years. They've either been last or second to last in sacks. So we're going to get two guys who immediately are going to boost our pass rush. Secondly, Michael Penix, and this is probably putting a lot here, I think we are looking at one of the best quarterback classes of all time in terms of last year. I think Caleb, Jaden, Drake May, Penix, McCarthy, and Nix, I'm putting my flag on the ground now. Obviously, 2 of the 6, Bo and Jaden both got their teams to the playoffs. So they had immediate success. Penix didn't start the season, but I liked a lot once he started playing. Drake May, I think, showed the flashes and potential of what's going to make a really good NFL quarterback. New England was obviously essentially talentless last year, so there were issues there, but it was issues as a team. It wasn't so much issues as the player. So I think he's going to be really good. Caleb, again, there was a lot of dysfunction in Chicago, but I believe he's still going to be really good. That leaves the last two guys, McCarthy, who I'm really high on Kevin O'Connell. I think it's going to be kind of impossible for McCarthy to fail with Kevin O'Connell, with Justin Jefferson, with Addison, with the offensive line they've built. So I think McCarthy's really good, which really just leaves Penix, who, with London, with the forever conversation, I guess, of is this Kyle Pitts year, Bijan Robinson, Atlanta's O-line, while it's unfortunate they lost their center to the Bears, I still think they have a good enough O-line. I think we're looking at an all-time quarterback draft class where we have 6 quality starters. And so because of Penix, because I think this defense is going to be improved, they are playing a third-place schedule, which, again, I'm not a strength of schedule guy, but when you are a third or fourth place team, it is easier for you to improve because you're playing other bad teams. And the other bad teams, I don't feel like addressed their as easily glaring of need as the Falcons did. Falcons needed pass rushers. Real simple. They went and got maybe the two most talented, one who was consensus, the other who was some character issues, but people still really loved the talent. So if they're just a middle of the pack pass rush team, they were 28th in total defense last year, which isn't good. But if a lot of that is predicated on they just didn't have a pass rush whatsoever. They are now, I believe, going to have a pass rush. I think Penix is finally going to make all these offensive pieces they've drafted over the last couple of years that's going to make it work. Again, Robinson, Pitts, London. The offensive line, I think, is, again, it's not great, but I think it'll be fine. Penix showed the flashes. I really like Atlanta. And their division is not exceptionally tough. The Saints, I believe, are in the Arch Manning sweepstakes. The Panthers, while I really like what Bryce and Canales were doing towards the end of last year, they're still probably a draft or two away. So that leaves really just you and the Buccaneers, who the Buccaneers should be the favorites walking into the season, 1,000%. Like, if you're a betting man, go put your money on the Bucs. The problem is the Bucs being who they are. The Bucs are just a lot of really good. The Bucs don't exactly have a lot of great. The Bucs are Baker's really good. I'm not sure Baker's in the great category. Their receivers, Mike Evans is historically is great, but on a season per season basis, he's in the really good category. They just drafted Emeka Egbuka out of Ohio State. I just messed up his name. I apologize. But we also have Chris Godwin, who's coming off an injury. Their offensive line's good. Tristan Wirfs himself is fantastic. All pro at both left tackle and right tackle. He's amazing. But as a whole, this is a really good team. I don't think it's a great team, which means I don't think they're uncatchable. So the Falcons, don't be shocked if we're sitting up here. The Falcons are an 11-12 win team, and they are winning the NFC South. I like a lot about Atlanta. Again, sometimes it is just as simple as what's our biggest need and can we fix that? Because that's the reason why we're losing so many of these games. They almost beat the Chargers last year in a game where Kirk Cousins threw 4 interceptions. Think about that. And some of the worst interceptions you'll ever see in your life. The other, and this is where I'm going to get the most flack for, but I don't care. My bold prediction for the AFC, the Denver Broncos win 12 games and win the AFC West. I've been on this for about the better part of 2 to 3 months, and I'm just ready to go all the way. Look, when you if you've ever seen on Twitter, they'll post like position groups, and they'll say who's got the best position group in all of these, right? So like they'll go QB, running back, receiver, O-line, and they'll go over to D-line, linebacker, safety. In the AFC West, okay, quarterback, obviously you still got to give it to Mahomes. Bo Nix is, now I think Bo is better than Geno, but if you're going to say Bo's the 4th best quarterback in the division, I disagree, but I'm not here to argue with people. I'm over having Bo Nix arguments. Running back, Raiders, Chargers, depending on how you want to be on Ash and Genty. Cool. Receivers, Cortland Sutton's the best receiver in the AFC West. Like, the Chiefs receivers, I know they're fast, and there's this, we want to get Mahomes back to this high-flying offense, but the Chiefs don't have a better receiver than Cortland Sutton. The Raiders don't have a better receiver than Cortland Sutton. And the Chargers, if you tell me Ladd McConkey, well, Charger fans, you don't even believe that because I hear the way you talk about your receiver and core during the games. Now, do you need more than just Cortland Sutton? 1,000%. Let the other guys, Marvin Mims, who came on to the end of last season. They've got Troy Franklin, who's got the connection with Bo from Oregon. Plus, they just drafted another guy, Bryant. Let those guys be elevated by Sean Payton. At tight end, it's the Raiders. Clearly, Brock Bowers is probably the best tight end in football. Travis Kelce is aging. Evan Ingram is an improvement over what Denver had last year. Cool. Right? So we just went QB, receiver, running back, tight end. Now let's look at every other position group. Offensive line, it's Denver, and it's not close. I know Chargers have the two great tackles, uh, and I'm not trying to. They are great, but there's some greatness in name that is not necessarily greatness on field. The Broncos, even with those two stalwart tackles, the Broncos are better offensive line by PFF and grade and every metric you could find were better by a mile. The only offensive lines that performed better than Denver's last year were Detroit and Philadelphia. That was the class, and then there's a drop off. That was the class of offensive line Denver was in. Bowles, McGlinchey as your two tackles, Quentin Miners, who is Quentin Nelson has the I am the best guard, so you have to come get my title. But Quentin Miners is as good as anybody, and I would argue he's even just as good as Quentin Nelson. What they brought over, the guard they brought over from Baltimore, and even at center when they lost like Denver's offensive line, best in the it's besides Detroit and Philadelphia, it's the best offensive line. Ben Powers, I was blanking on Ben Powers' name. I apologize. Offensive line, Denver. Defensive line, it's Denver. And it's not, again, this is not particularly close. Chris Jones in name and Khalil Mack in name are going to give the Chargers and Chiefs fans some, and Max Crosby in name are going to be like, oh, well, they're the best high-end player. But John Franklin Myers, Zach Allen, who should have been first-team All-Pro, those guys, and what they just, remember, the Broncos defense just led the league in sacks. And that's without a Max Crosby. That's without a Khalil Mack. That's without a Chris Jones. Just led the NFL in sacks. Linebackers, again, Benito, Cooper, they just brought in Greenlaw. Denver has the best linebackers. Go to secondary, go to corners. They're just secondary as a whole. It's, again, Denver, and it's not particularly close. And that's with, now Riley Moss, I know some people are going to be iffy on, we'll see where it happens, but Surtain, Moss, McMillan, who was one of the best slot corners in the NFL last year. You added Jahdae Barron in the draft. You have Brandon Jones. Like, this defense, defensively, Denver has the best defense in there. At receiver, I think they have the best individual receiver. And if you want to go with coaching, I get Jim Harbaugh gets this credit for what he did with the Niners, which he deserves, and what he did in college. But why is his resume? It's impressive that he's both collegiate and professional. Fine. And Pete Carroll somewhat has that too. But in 2025, why are we considering them better than Sean Payton? Andy Reid, fine. Andy Reid's in a class by himself. And this is the best coach division in football. So I've got the second best coach. I've got the best individual receiver. I have the best offensive line and defense. This is the defense that should be top 3, if not the best defense in the NFL. I get a good start to the schedule because I get to introduce, Denver starts their season at home against Cam Ward. So you want to talk about a confidence boost? Cam Ward in his first ever NFL game having to go against that defense in Mile High. I get another year with Bo Nix and Sean Payton, who, again, I'm not having the Bo Nix argument with anyone anymore. You want to say Bo is the worst quarterback of the last year, he's this, he's that, fine. Him and Sean Payton work. I think the Chiefs are going to be worse because I don't think they actually address their offensive line in a meaningful way. Like, their offensive line, the way they attempted to fix it was high-end potential, but a lot of risk. We're going to get the Trent Williams backup and the kid out of Ohio State who's coming off an injury, and maybe this will be amazing. Maybe we'll also have 2 injury-riddled tackles, and our offensive line will continue to be what it is, which is injury-riddled, moving guys all over the place, and Patrick's going to be running for his life. Traded away Joe Thuney. The Raiders, I think the Raiders will be better because they just got significantly better at head coach and quarterback. I still think they're going to be the 4th-place team. And the Chargers, while Denver needs to prove they can beat the Chargers, they did go 0-2 against them last year. I think, which is funny because almost anyone you've seen put out a Denver prediction schedule, they have the Chargers being their first loss, which I get. But, again, I just feel like they're better. I think defensively they're better. The Chargers are a weirdly built team, in my opinion, that Justin Herbert's clearly your best player and your franchise quarterback, and yet you want to run the ball 40 times. So my bold prediction, Denver gets 12 wins. That wins the AFC West, which is going to be tightly contested. And the Atlanta Falcons win the NFC South. They also get to 11, 12 wins to win that division. Tomorrow we will go over our two biggest disappointments. But Falcons, Broncos, division winners 2025. You heard it here first.